I think it's ridiculous with the matchmaking. Like you mentioned, like you don't have any issue with Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. It's actually a really entertaining fight. I also think the same thing for Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. It's just the fact that we're getting the interim title without Arman Sarukian in it, and now we're getting a guarantee that Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje winner will fight Ilia Topuria come next summer. So how long is the rightful number one contender in Arman Sarukian going to be out at 155? 145, you have undefeated Lerone Murphy, undefeated Movsar Evloev, and now Alexander Volkanovski's last fight was against Diego Lopez. Now he's fighting Diego Lopez again. And then that just leads you to think, going down the timeline, it's like, man, at 170, we have all these rightful contenders as well, and there's a chance that they give that. The betting favorite right now, you can get odds on that, is Kamaru Usman to fight that. So you're seeing this, we've always known meritocracy isn't the thing in this, but it's just like, man, there are rightful contenders being passed up in multiple divisions now.
Tony Ferguson's surprising backing of his pick for the UFC 304 interim lightweight title fight created shockwaves that hit the entire MMA community like a freight train. People genuinely couldn't believe what they were hearing from him. When you really think about this situation, Tony stands in this completely unique position where he's one of the only fighters who has actually stepped into that octagon and traded leather with both Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje. He's felt their punching power connect with his body, experienced their relentless pace up close, and knows exactly what kind of pressure these guys can apply when the cage door locks.
You know Paddy and Justin very well. They're fighting each other for the interim belt. Who do you think wins that fight?
Paddy. Only because Justin doesn't want another interim belt. That fucker, I mean, like, it's just it. You could tell, like, as soon as, like, when we were fighting, like, I prepared for a different guy. Like, I'd be real.
Rather than supporting the seasoned veteran like everyone assumed you would, especially after going through those 5 absolutely punishing rounds with Gaethje, Tony surprisingly threw his support behind the emerging British sensation. He did this in such a compelling way that it made people pause their scrolling and completely reconsider this matchup from an entirely fresh perspective. Tony saw something unique in the younger fighter that he believed the older, more battle-tested competitor had lost somewhere along his journey. In Tony's mind, this interim championship represented something totally different for each man, and he was convinced that Paddy's relentless drive and burning desire would manifest inside that octagon in ways that Justin simply couldn't replicate at this current phase of his fighting career. According to Tony's reasoning, that hungrier fighter who's still pursuing his first taste of gold always carries this distinct type of flame inside him, a completely different intensity than someone who has already experienced that temporary championship glory and understands what it actually represents in the bigger picture.
Paddy's not bad, dude. Paddy's not bad. He's very beatable, and Gaethje's very beatable as well. But when it goes into the passion and how upsetting Justin Gaethje has always been about not getting that real title shot, and they just keep dangling it right there again. I mean, shit. Paddy's in for a new treat, right? Paddy's the one that's never fought for a belt. He's going in there. He's going to be trying to, get that stuff. He's going to feel a little bit more fresher. He's going to have that little bit of excitedness, in my opinion. So if I was going to the book and I was going to try to place the bet, I mean, shit, I would go with the new kid that's going in there and that's going in there for the new opportunity rather than the old kid that fought for the belt, disrespected it, threw it on the fucking ground, and didn't give it for it.
The most striking aspect of Tony's analysis was his immediate confidence when delivering his prediction. He witnessed Paddy approaching this opportunity with undeniable energy and building momentum, while he pictured Justin stepping into that cage, carrying the accumulated damage from an entire career filled with absolute wars and devastating battles. Every single one leaving its mark. Tony never questioned either fighter's skill level for even a moment, but he recognized Paddy as the more energized choice, the fighter who would approach this moment like it represented the absolute biggest opportunity of his entire existence, as if his whole future depended on this single night's work.
Paddy gonna fight with Ilia Topuria in January. I already knew that 5 months ago, but I didn't know that they're gonna do interim title Gaethje and Paddy. But Ilia didn't fight, and I think this is UFC game plan. It's not like a family issue or something. They wanna make star Paddy Pimblett to bring him to fight for the title with Topuria as a bigger name and make it like a big fight like Khabib versus Conor, but they're not even if he got the belt. Paddy, for me, it's a easy work. Justin, it's a easy work. Ilya, easy work. It was a hard work, Islam, but he left nobody on my level on this division right now.
Tony's perspective became even more compelling and insightful. when he characterized both fighters as having clear vulnerabilities in their own distinct ways, yet still identified Paddy as the more motivated competitor between them. He recalled from his own fighting experience just how much pure hunger and determination a fighter possesses before ever experiencing any form of championship recognition, and he detected that Paddy still existed in that mental state where everything feels critical and life-changing. Tony believed that Justin, having already captured an interim title previously and understanding what that experience entails, wouldn't possess that same original intensity and burning passion that he once carried when first competing for championship gold. While Tony acknowledged both fighters' heart and warrior spirit without any doubt whatsoever, he sensed that time and accumulated experience had completely altered what each man was genuinely fighting for at this stage.
Justin, if you need the help, let me know. I'll fly to you and help you.
Really?
I mean, I want him to win, and that boosted guy, I hate him. But I hope Justin Gaethje not gonna drink, party, gonna train, dedicate himself, be focused. It's his last chance in this life. He was fighting for the title maybe 5 times. So this is his chance and the end of his career. Win the interim title, fight for the real title, and then retire. That's the best for him.
Tony's message was straightforward, delivered in his own distinctive style of breaking things down. When you're deciding who appeared more likely to genuinely capitalize on a moment of this magnitude and extract everything possible from it, that young challenger who's pursuing his first legitimate opportunity at greatness always seems more threatening and volatile than the veteran who has remained positioned just beneath that undisputed championship level for years. Watching opportunities pass by repeatedly, even while making his definitive choice, Tony still expressed hope that both men would bring complete mayhem when they finally collided. Because mayhem and brutality is precisely what a contest of this caliber consistently guarantees to deliver for the audience.
Is not as important as an interim title fight. An interim title fight, by the way, that does not feature a number one contender. Because the number one contender at 155 pounds is a guy named Arman Tsarukyan. And he's not involved in this fight. And of course, the champion Ilia Topuria is not involved in this fight. This is a makeshift fight. This is as prestigious as a BMF title. God bless. I said I wanted to see Paddy fight for the belt. God bless. I said, Justin, I think you need to win a couple more. He said he was going to retire unless he got a title fight. I guess he's not retiring. He's fighting for an interim title. But this is a bogus fight. And it's insane to me that it is headlining over Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes. On paper, Paddy versus Justin, if Paddy wasn't fighting Ilia and Ilya's supposed to fight Arman, on paper, Paddy versus Justin is a fine fight to determine the number one contender to fight Ilia and or Arman. Ilia won that belt back in June. I don't even think you need an interim title fight. Honestly, it should have been the co-main event, 5-round, number one contender fight, Ilia versus Arman, second half of the year. What's the problem with that? And now what you just said, because he reiterated this in the Instagram Live, the winner of this fight is going to fight Ilia. What happens to Arman? Arman's going to have to fight who? What is going on? What does Arman Tsarukyan have?
Now here's what fighters need to accomplish to earn their shot at championship gold these days. While Tony was supporting one side with his breakdown, Arman Tsarukyan was watching this entire scenario develop with mounting frustration that intensified with every passing development. Arman was absolutely convinced that he had completed everything required and more to earn his deserved position as the next legitimate title contender in the division. He had entered a genuine title eliminator bout, defeated the legendary Charles Oliveira in convincing fashion, remained active and prepared, while others sat idle on the sidelines, and even maintained constant training camp readiness for whenever the UFC would finally contact him with an opportunity. Rather than receiving recognition for all that dedication and hard work, he found himself getting bypassed and ignored when the UFC made their shocking decision to match Pimblett and Gaethje for the interim championship instead. Arman later revealed in various interviews that he had been hearing different whispers and speculation about potential matchups circulating well before any official announcements were made. However, none of those rumors or pieces of information hinted at anything remotely as unexpected as Pimblett actually competing for an interim title at this point in his development. When he ultimately discovered that the UFC was genuinely moving forward with booking Paddy versus Justin for championship gold, he experienced complete shock initially, then rising frustration and resentment, and finally reluctant acceptance, because realistically, he possessed very limited power to change the outcome.
Obviously, he knows he's fighting in about 6 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks, whatever it is. So the man's ready, right? And he could be an interim champion of the world. Now, we know an interim champion basically means the number one contender. But if Paddy can pull it off, unbelievable. That'll be 4 champs, 2 interims and 2 legit, well, 3 legit now with Tom being promoted from the UK that have become champions. And for Justin Gaethje, this is the final go. This is the final crack of the whip. The man's had 2 title fights in the past, Charles Oliveira to Khabib Nurmagomedov, and now he gets to go up against Paddy Pimblett. Now, talking about the matchup, of course, it is an easier fight for Justin than what it is against Khabib Nurmagomedov, one of the greatest of all time. Islam Makhachev, the current pound for pound, and according to many people, a man that is surpassing Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? So in that regard, it is an easier matchup. Will Paddy be able to take him down? Will he dance around the octagon? Yes, he will. Will he try and replicate the game plan of Max Holloway? Of course he will. Who wouldn't try and do that? You aren't going to stand and go toe-to-toe with Justin Gaethje because the man does have knockout power. But underestimate Paddy at your peril. That's all I'll say about that one, but that is a phenomenal fight.
During the time Arman was expressing his displeasure about the circumstances and voicing his frustrations through public channels, MMA journalist Ariel Helwani unleashed his own extensive critique from an entirely different viewpoint and angle. Helwani wasn't especially shocked by the UFC selecting a popular personality and fan favorite over a legitimately deserving ranked challenger. He had witnessed that exact pattern multiple times before, but he felt this particular decision ventured into dangerous territory that rendered the entire interim belt concept virtually pointless and random. This was establishing a precedent where entertainment appeal and captivating narratives carried substantially more weight than genuine athletic accomplishment and competitive worthiness. In his opinion, constructing an interim title bout without incorporating the obvious number one challenger was exactly as backwards and nonsensical as it appeared when spoken aloud. He noticed similar trends developing across other weight classes as well, where fighters with rapidly expanding popularity and social media presence received significant opportunities much quicker than those quietly assembling lengthy, impressive victory sequences against elite opposition. Helwani believed passionately that the sport was moving further and further from competitive authenticity with each decision and creeping closer toward choices driven mainly by spectacle and entertainment considerations. Michael Bisping entered the discussion with a vastly different perspective and challenged the criticism being directed toward the UFC's matchmaking choices. He considered the decisions being implemented were actually quite logical when examining the complete situation. Bisping argued that Arman Tsarukyan was not legitimately the rightful next challenger because of the considerable period he had remained inactive earlier that year when major opportunities were being distributed. Rather than criticizing the decision, Bisping endorsed the concept of placing Paddy Pimblett in a significant fight at this championship level, referencing Pimblett's strong positioning following his intense confrontation with Ilia Topuria that captured everyone's attention. He also defended Justin Gaethje's inclusion in this interim title scenario, stressing that regardless of his recent devastating knockout defeat to Max Holloway that became an internet sensation, Gaethje continues to be an exceptionally dangerous opponent with comprehensive abilities in all areas, and he highlighted Justin's previous commanding victory over Rafael Fiziev as definitive evidence of his current elite form. At the same time, Eddie Alvarez contributed his own first-hand experience and distinctive understanding to the discussion in ways nobody else possibly could. As someone who had genuinely stepped into a cage with Gaethje and delivered him one of the most difficult and brutal defeats of his professional career, Eddie possessed this rare perspective on Justin's growth as a total mixed martial artist. He felt no anger or concern about Justin receiving this interim title opportunity whatsoever. When you examined all the evidence, he actually believed Justin earned this chance more than virtually anyone else in the lightweight division, purely based on the remarkable quality and consistency of his record throughout the year. Eddie admired how Gaethje had dedicated years to consistently battling the absolute toughest available opponents without ever showing hesitation or declining a difficult matchup, and he believed that type of warrior background and attitude still held tremendous significance. Eddie recognized that the UFC perpetually operated with entertainment value and pay-per-view revenue as primary considerations that represents standard business practice. However, he didn't consider Gaethje's inclusion in this title fight to be genuinely unfair when accounting for his complete body of work. What Eddie did seriously challenge was the broader matchmaking strategy and methodology, because while Justin's position in the contest made total sense theoretically, the combination and scheduling still seemed somewhat calculated to support Pimblett's ascending storyline. All these varying viewpoints from current fighters to established analysts to former title holders created this detailed and thorough representation of the responses surrounding the interim lightweight championship fight announcement. Certain people appreciated the matchup and believed it was perfectly reasonable, others completely despised it and felt personally disrespected, and many sensed the UFC had intentionally sacrificed fairness and competitive integrity for publicity and mainstream attention. Still, throughout all the disagreements and disappointments being voiced publicly, the same fundamental concept kept emerging repeatedly in various formats. The approaching battle between Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett represents more than just a straightforward collision of different fighting styles or conflicting personalities, but rather a pivotal moment that revealed to everyone exactly how dramatically the sport was evolving at its foundation. Regardless of whether fans embraced the new path the UFC was pursuing or rejected everything it represented, UFC 304 had transformed into one of the most intensely debated and analyzed events in recent history, and that discussion showed no signs of fading away anytime soon.